Hello everyone, my name is Octavio Cortes and today I'm going to be talking about the reemergence of school segregation in the United States. The fight to desegregate schools is just as important as it was 50 years ago. According to an article written by Time in 2016, 40% of African American students attend a school that is 90% or more of students of color. The reintroduction of this topic has been brought up by large institutes, top researchers, politicians, and people of power. According to an article written by The Atlantic in 2018, the number of segregated schools has doubled between 1996 and 2016. Both of these facts are alarming indicators of the reemergence of school segregation. School segregation has been caused by the increased isolation in minority students, residential segregation, and limited opportunities for minority students. I believe I am credible to talk about this issue because I spent a couple of weeks researching this topic for my departmental honors thesis project. I ended up dropping the topic because it was a lot to handle at the time, so I focused on something else, but I believe that I am credible enough and confident to speak on the matter. And a reason to listen is I believe that this issue is something that a lot of people don't realize still exists in our society. They think that we're a very racially diverse country, which means that our schools are very desegregated and equal, but that is not the case. So a preview of my main points will be the increased isolation of minority students, residential segregation, and the limited opportunities of minority students. So the first point will be talking about the increased isolation of minority students. This basically means that there's a high or low proportion of a racial group in a school. According to an article written by Vox in 2018, black students are more likely to grow up in poor neighborhoods than they were 50 years ago. This is a big problem because this means that they're going to be more isolated from other racial groups like Hispanics, whites, and Asians. And the same can be said for Latino students. According to a report written by the Hessinger Report in 2019, they found that Latino students are heavily isolated and 17% of Latinx students attend a school that is 50% Latino. You can see that there are similarities between Black and Latino students, and because of that, it shows that there is perhaps a disconnect between the larger minority groups in the country and white people. And this is a product of residential segregation. Residential segregation is probably one of the more larger indicators of school segregation. In the same Vox article that I mentioned, it mentions that residential segregation causes students to go to poorer and worse schools. And this is a cause of the structural racism in America, which has caused minorities to have issues coming out of poverty. According to an article written by the Urban Institute in 2018, they found that residential segregation explains 76% of the variation in school segregation. This basically means that residential segregation explains 76% of school segregation. And although it doesn't explain everything, it explains almost a little more than 3/4, which is large enough to make the correlation between residential segregation and school segregation. And the product of these first 2 points has led to unequal opportunities for minority students. As I mentioned before, Brown versus Board was an important case in destroying the precedent of separate but equal created by Plessy versus Ferguson. And I talk about this because we have backtracked from this. In the past couple of decades, we have seen that school segregation has gotten much worse. And because of that, we need to find solutions to it soon. According to an article written by the Century Foundation in 2019, they found that racial and socioeconomic diversity in classroom provides social and cognitive effects, like increased average test scores, students are more likely to enroll in college, and it reduces the achievement gap between racial groups. These are all things that we should be striving to achieve for our students and future generations. And because of school segregation, we miss out on these opportunities and are possibly hindering future generations of students. And this has a larger effect than we think that this may have. So because of the increased isolation of minority students in schools, residential segregation, and the missed opportunities the limited opportunities for minority students, this has all caused the reemergence of school segregation. We have solved the issue in the past through Brown versus Board, so we know there's a solution. It's just finding the present-day solution in order to create equal opportunities for all racial groups in America and for future generations to come. Thank you.